Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. So, the salmon and trout season is over for another year, and while there was plenty of negatives with fish kills and pollution incidents, there was also still a lot of great fishing to be had. And for this week's episode, we're focusing on the brown trout season with Eamonn Ross from Lough Sheelin and Mike Keady from Lough Corrib. But before we hear from Eamonn and Mike, Tom, we have to mention a recent worrying development of green algae in Lough Corrib.
It was actually after we'd recorded the show earlier this week. And since then, there's been a development on Corrib, and there's been an outbreak of algae in certain blue-green algae in certain bays of the lake. So it just goes to show, and this is November. It's a really strange time of the year to be getting it. Because, because when we're talking in the show here, it's kind of might feel that we're a bit blasé about it here, and the Corrib doesn't suffer as much. It just goes to show, like we've said it before here, we have to be careful with this lake. We have to be careful with all our lakes, and we have to keep an eye on them. But this worrying outbreak, I'd say it'll probably be gone today. Now that we're recording today, it's a bit windier and a bit more rain. But it just goes to show.
Wait, and tell me this: whereabouts in the lake? What bays? Whereabouts?
They're all over the lake. I'd seen them up on Facebook. I mean, I saw them myself in bay here at the end of Inishtours. There's in Birchall, Derrymoyle. Bays all over the lake, so it's just in calm, sheltered bays.
And it's north and south, like it's not.
Yeah, it seems to be all over from what I'm gathering. So it just goes to show we have to be vigilant. We have to be very careful.
And any idea what it's from, or what do we think it's from?
It's obviously. I would imagine. Look, I can't say for definite. I'm not. I'm an angler, but I would imagine it's a form of enrichment. Corrib isn't immune to it either. I know. I have had reports that nitrogen levels of the upper part of the lake are quite high, right? And that's in a report that's been done. There's various factors for this, whether it's and we do mention in the podcast, we don't have a lot of, should we say, intensive agriculture around the lake. There are parts on the eastern side as well, but also as well we have other things like forestation and reed plants, and like there's application of nitrogen on then for those. So look, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors that come in, and that just for such a jewel in the crown like Corrib, for all our waterways, I think this is important. It's not just as we have to be really careful, and to see something like this, it is worrying. It is.
Has
worrying.
It ever been seen on Corrib before?
Oh, it has, yeah, and I've seen it before. What worries me about is in November. When temperatures are lower.
It has been so mild though, Tom, hasn't it? Like it has been so
mild, but normally you're talking at, when I've seen it before, it's been in heat waves. When you're talking about water temperature going up to 20 degrees. And when that happens, the oxygen, a lot of the oxygen is depleted from the water. So it's more liable, it's more likely to build up then. So I just think this time of the year when it's colder, Yeah,
it's a worrying sign. And just by way of context for people, we do cover the brown trout season on Sheelin and Corrib, and then obviously we talk about the fish kill on Sheelin with Eamonn, and Eamonn goes into that in great detail with us and meetings he had with the IFI. But then that conversation then leads on to a discussion about water quality. We mentioned Lough Neagh, and obviously then we mentioned Lough Corrib. And I suppose at the time, in the terms of the context of the conversation, we were kind of saying, well, Corrib is kind of beneficial because of its size, and we're quite lucky.
Water turnover.
Exactly, but like you said, 48 hours later, suddenly you're getting, notice of the algae on the lake. So, look, it's an interesting conversation that we have. I think, it's really interesting. I think, Tom, we've mentioned this year, when it came to salmon fishing, we were talking about environmental issues more and more when it came to the salmon. It's not quite at that stage of brown trout, but we are talking about fish kills. We're talking about water quality. Environmental issues are starting to come to the fore more and more in relation to fly fishing.
It's actually very interesting because I was thinking of that when we were doing it, because, this year, a lot of our salmon podcasts, unfortunately have been more about the problems facing salmon anglers than the actual fishing itself. And then I thought, most of our trout ones have been good. But then when we're doing the one, and naturally you can see from me, when we're chatting to Mike, I'm looking at Corrib, which have been fairly good. But then when Eamonn comes in, talks about Sheelin, you just realize, oh my God, big environmental problem there, with the fish kill. And he's talking of enrichment. And So you're probably hitting the nail on the head there. That it's creeping in there when you have the Sheelin, you have the black water. Yeah,
It's the canary in the coal mine,
yep.
and this is what all anglers need to be wary of and to keep an eye on. And unfortunately, it's as Eamon says in the episode, it's not going to go away. It's not going to be solved anytime soon. So, yeah, keep an eye on it. Right, so look, we do get some fishing talk done as well.
Yeah.
So it is a review of Sheelin and Corrib. And first, Mike tells us about how the season went on Lough Corrib for him.
Season was good when the weather played ball. That was the thing between heat waves and every kind of thing. But yeah, it started slow on Corrib, and there was no real reason why. Temperatures were all right and water levels were low enough, and but it took a while to get going. It was kind of hard fishing. Even the lads trolling, you know what I mean. It was slow at the beginning until probably until the duck fly really, and then everything was early this year. That was the big thing about this year. All the hatches were early. We actually had duck fly. We actually caught fish on duck fly. It was it the 13th of March, Tom?
Well, it's 13th
Up at
of
you, the
yeah.
13th of
Yeah, we're
March.
up
There was
here
actually
indoors,
duck fly
13th of
hatching,
March.
fish moving. Yeah, and we're catching fish.
What were the conditions like? I'm trying to think back to it. Like, geez, it feels like a lifetime. Was it mild, settled? What was it?
Yeah, it was kind of all right around then. You know what I mean? But it was just every just all the hatches started early and finished
Mm.
early. That was except for the mayfly. Um, Yeah, it was strange. I've never seen actually normally now up with Tom and all over the lake, really, to be honest with you. If you had duck fly by Paddy's Day is normally early enough, it's early, but it was earlier this year. I'd say come by third week of March, it was pretty much over really, you know what I mean? We had competition there up to around 50, the end of March, and I mean, it was hard fishing do you know what I mean, to get fish like on duck fly. You know what I mean? It was really the tail end of it. Like there was
Yeah,
people.
a lot of the areas at that stage, the duck flight finished.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
the weather had turned really foul as well, so that really didn't help. You know what I mean? It wasn't ideal conditions either. But yeah, everything was early. Olives was early then. Mayfly started early. All the hatches on the lake were early. All early. Yeah, olives was good. The lake really, I suppose, started to fish around mid-April. Well, for olives, for me anyway. And um, then like the mayfly started. I mean, the end of April, and I mean, it just kind of took over. And then that was really, it was the best hatches I've ever seen. Best mayfly hatches I've
yeah.
ever seen on the lake. Now, maybe people have seen better, but I don't remember better hatches than mayfly.
Well, I agree with you. It's the same best hatches I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
it started for the end of April, and like it didn't really stop. We had a heat wave then, that real warm weather there to start of May, and I said the mayfly will be gone, and it'll hatch like mad, and it'll be gone. And no, once the weather broke around mid-May again, it still fished well. It fished well in June.
mm.
It fished mayfly. There was actually fish. It fished right through until I'd say mid-August on mayfly. The caught fish on mayfly patterns. It was
Bloody
unbelievable
hell.
this year.
Tell me this, and I'll be asking Eamon this as well, in terms of when the jungle drums were beaten then about how good it was. Did you see the angler numbers come out then, or?
You see, when you got actually the big numbers of anglers, we actually had the very warm, settled weather. Traditionally, you know what I mean, the first 2 or 3 weeks of May. So
Mm.
actually, the conditions were. There was actually so many mayfly. We actually had decent enough fishing on mayfly nymphs, and the only reason you had it was that there was such hatches of fly. Which is very unusual for Corrib to see actual fly pouring up off the water. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, it was spectacular, the hatches of fly this year. I've never seen it on Corrub.
And falls of spent as well, and some spent fishing, and we don't get spent fishing
We had
normally.
some spin
Yeah,
fishing as well, which
yeah.
you never get. So from that point of view, I don't know, it knocks my theory on the head. I actually would have thought that the mayfly hatches were in decline, and
Yeah.
I was basically blaming the roach for it. So, but then we got a massive blast of mayfly this year, just
Yeah.
after 2 or 3 slack years for them.
I'm hesitant to ask, do we know why? 'Cause nobody knows what. Like,
Nope.
and is the concern that it could be like a kind of a blip in the sense of I
Well,
suppose we'll know in the next few years,
I
but
don't know. I mean, and normally we wouldn't have like we'd have mayfly, but it'd be, what I mean, it'd be sparse. It'll be, intermittent. You get an odd day here and there. We'd have good hatches of fly, but like this was spectacular hatches of fly. Like, this was I never seen the likes of it. Like, you'd be going down the side of an island and there's mayfly just pouring off the water in front of you, just hatching up out of the.
and was that consistently like for weeks?
Consistent for weeks, like for weeks.
And not just localized. You may fly down out from
Mayfly
your side
everywhere,
everywhere.
everywhere. No, the year
Loads of mayfly up
before,
with
in
us.
fairness, the year before we that settled weather in again in May, and like there was mayfly shook everywhere. I said it to Tom, but not for that length of time. But I said like there obviously was really good hatches of mayfly, but the weather was so settled that the fly was just up and gone. But this year it stayed like, and we still had like I don't know whether one rolled into the other where the mayfly stayed going, and then you got that second hatch in July because. I mean, we went to Orkney for a week and we came back and the fishing was absolutely the following week. The hospice competition was on and it was spectacular fishing. Like, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of fish caught on mayfly patterns that, in that competition as well.
And were the fish coming willingly or?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like not a lot of free rising fish, but like you were moving fish the whole time. But depends. The weather was broken that time then as well. You know what I mean? And
It was the best mayfly hatch I ever saw.
yeah,
And interestingly as well, Loch Mask, which hasn't had a mayfly hatch in May for the last couple of years, had a good mayfly hatch in May.
yeah.
And fishing 2 Mays, which it hasn't had for a while.
Yeah,
Good
we
number
weren't
of
there
years.
much because, to be honest with you,
You wouldn't leave it,
fish so well, you couldn't leave it.
I remember we were chatting, Tom. I think it was kind of like I think it might have been April, May time, and I think we were describing it was like nature was on steroids.
Mm.
I think it was the best way to kind of put it. Like I remember just thinking it was like it's like everything just came into bloom, wasn't it? Like even just around the garden or around the fields, everything was just
I remember that actually. It's very true, and I thought it was really good at the time because everything just sort of whoosh, came.
Yeah,
exploded,
And with the mayfly, it just stayed.
it did stay. Yeah, and
Yeah.
everything came together. I mean, you had the olives then, and you probably had olives fairly early as well.
Mm.
With
Of course,
good
when the mayfly
fishing.
came up as well, what happened with
Mayfly
us, I
came up
suppose,
last
when the
week of
mayfly come up,
April.
you kind of leave the olives behind. Like we
Yeah,
had decent olive fishing, but at the end of the day,
yeah.
you
The
know,
only thing that was
the
where
mayflies.
it took you away from it for a little while. Well, of course, the weather suited as well was the buzzer. Like the buzzer fished really well on the lower lake for about a week, I'd say,
It's about a
maybe a
week.
little bit more. Unbelievable fishing,
Yeah,
unbelievable fishing this year, and but it was very centralized in a couple of areas. Um, but
and it
like
got kind of packed there as well, Mike, didn't it?
slightly, I normally wouldn't. I normally stay away from boats. I don't like being around a lot of boats, but I mean, to be honest with you, it was fishing so well. You were stuck right beside boats and you were catching fish. Like it was.
Yeah.
It was unreal. Barry Malone myself had a couple of days down and a downside and that, and it was unreal. Like it was nothing to be in double figures. Like it was
yeah.
just that it was nothing to be in double figures of fish. It was, even moving
And good fish.
around and good fish. Yeah, yeah, some
Mm.
really really good fish as well. Yeah, it was, but it just I don't know. I like well, the buzzer it's not lasting as long as it used to before. Anyway, we've talked about that before, but end of April, start of May there, it was just for about a week solid, a bit more. It was just spectacular. Like it was just, I've never seen like for years, you know what I mean? The amount of fish like per day, you know what I mean? That you were able to catch, it was just, it was, I mean, people say that there's no fish in the lake. Well, it was, everybody was catching fish like within, do you know what I mean? I think it was in Anadon one day and people were giving out about it, but I suppose it's like the mayfly, everybody turns up when the fishing is good. I think someone said there was 27 boats one day in Anadon Bay,
In the
like
bay, yeah.
alone, do you know what I mean? Which I know it's pretty cramped, pretty packed, but that would have been it wouldn't have been the average. But still there would have been a lot of boats. But there's a lot of boats anyway the last few years. Like the buzzer is kind of like a spin-off of the mayfly anymore. A lot of lads just kind of gear for it and look forward to it and take their holidays for it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because it's getting a bit more into that couple of week period. Whereas back in the day, 10 years ago or more, you had buzzer fishing from the middle of April till into June sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he did actually.
I think it's
Lasted a lot
maybe
longer
the
than
Deborah
Mike.
Mussel and the
Yeah.
water. I don't know whether it's I won't say it's cleaner. I don't know if maybe it is, but definitely the zebra mussel has filtered the water more, and the buzzer hatches have declined drastically, like into that kind of like into that 2 week period now, But that was spectacular fishing this year, I have to say. It was spectacular.
Well, Eamon, can you top that?
I was going to say that I feel like coming on to sing a song after Pavarotti here. Um,
Luca, how's it going?
I had probably the worst year I've ever had on Sheelin in my life last year, and I'm going to just talk in general about Sheelin. Look, there was really good spawning last winter, and I got my footage of a trout spawning or trout on the reds under the water. I was delighted with myself, and I was really looking forward to March and April. And if I compare the two years, 2024 and 2025, I had 24 trout in March and April in 2024 in Sheelin, which would be averaging around 3¾ pounds. It's really good fishing. I had two this year. And I got those. One of them I got it on the 18th of March, and the other one I got it on the 23rd of March. Now, I looked at the fishing, and I had about 70% days compared to in 2025 compared to 24, but I had so many less fish. So it was really, really difficult for me. I agree with Tom in relation to the way everything was very, very early in terms of fly hatches. But the buzzer fishing didn't really happen for me on Sheelin this year, and we had great buzzer fishing on it in 2024. And I think a lot of it was to do with wind, because we don't have as many places on Sheelin to fish it. If
a lot more localized, isn't it, Eamon?
It is, yeah, and you need the wind to be right. So you just sometimes it's difficult to fish it, and you're as well fishing wet flies. So I had a really tough time. Now. The mayfly was early, and I got a few fish in the mayfly, and I was enjoying the mayfly fishing on nymphs from about the 2nd of May, which is early. It's 2 weeks early. I was getting fish on nymphs. So
you were early in Sheelin too as well.
Yes, and like I seen mayfly in April in Sheelin, and normally I'd be saying if I was advising somebody to go to it for mayfly fishing, I'd be saying, listen, you'll be time enough around the 19th or the 18th of May. And at that time, you're just beginning to see the hatch building. On the 19th of May, sure, it was in full swing. And again, and probably a bit unique to Sheelin, we had a heat wave in May. That was what I'm calling the first heat wave. And that really made fishing difficult there, because now I was off, or I wasn't on it for a lot of May, because we were in Rutland fishing in the international, and I had to practice on Rowan Lake and a few of these rainbow fisheries to upskill myself, the bung and things like that. So Mark Fallon gave me great instruction on how to fish the bung, and it became nearly like it was like giving me some sort of an opiate. I got that on it. I thought,
and the Smarties then he was.
Yeah. I missed a good bit of the fishing, but from talking to lads that was on it in the period for probably the 7th to the 20th or the 21st, it was really difficult, really, really hard fishing. And I think if you were out early and you got out there early enough, there was huge hatches of fly. If you were out early enough in the morning, and I mean early.
Like what, like 6, 7, 8 o'clock or what?
Yeah, up to 9 o'clock.
Right.
You'd get a bit of fishing on it, and if you didn't, if you were out a bit later, they had fed and finished, because it was very, very warm, and Sheelin is shallow. It's not a deep lake, so as the temperature rises, the trout activity will go down on it, and I think that had an impact on it. As well as that, we have, I suppose, we've been looking back on this and trying to put you're always trying to put reasons on why these things happen. And in any fishery that you're relying on wild fish, you can never know what they're going to do. And they may have turned on to something else that we're not aware of yet. It'll be interesting to see next springtime. normally March and April is my best months on fishing and Sheelin, and there'll be 2 months I look forward to most. And it was so disappointing this year. I'd be hoping that it'll be better next year. So people are looking back on it from the whole year. You know, I came back from Rutland and I took a week off to recover from the exertions of catching rainbows, and I was genuinely tired after it because it's a killing week.
Hard work.
I was a full week of fishing and Sheelin, and I only went up a couple of days. But I got fish anytime I went up, not in any great numbers, maybe ones and twos. I don't think I got more than 2 any day, and it was good enough then for spent fishing. If you were out, you'd always get your chance and you'd get a fish in it. And you know, there was good enough fish, and I seen enough fish to be interested in it. Then we had what I count as the second heat wave, probably end of June into July, which was really, really very, very warm. And we had a fish kill on it in the middle to the end of July. And I suppose that broke the heat wave. That fish kill was at the very peak of the temperatures, and then the temperatures began to drop back again. And we began to get fish again out in the middle, and I had a good enough second half to the season. But it was disappointing overall on Lough Sheelin this year for me. I'm sure there's others that had different experiences. I think the fish kill was very disappointing for us, and we as well as that we're blaming this now as anglers. We have a lot of big boats appearing on the lake with big engines that are now beginning to be, I suppose, they're being seen by anglers as being a difficulty, and some people are saying that that's putting fish down as well. There's a lot of guys now fishing with these live scopes as well, which is to me, it's a weird way of fishing, but I think that it needs to be managed, and I think it needs to be managed nationally. That I don't think these things should be allowed. That's just, I know that they're trying to stop them in America because they're targeting big fish, and it's causing a lot of annoyance on Lough Sheelin. I can see difficulties with it in the coming years. So the club itself are looking to do something on that. And then we had the fish kill in July, which was really, really disappointing.
Well, sure, look, let's deal with it now, I suppose. It was in July.
Yeah.
Tell us the kind of background to it and kind of what we know of it.
Like. So we actually met with fisheries with Inland Fisheries Ireland yesterday, and I suppose the first thing I'd say is that it wasn't Inland Fisheries Ireland that caused it. So in fairness to those lads and lassies that we met yesterday, they had an enormous amount of information that they were able to give to us. I suppose there is no definitive reason why this happened. There is no doubt that the warm water had an impact, but there is also, the fact that the I suppose the nutrient levels and the eutrophic nature of the water that was coming into the lake, that had a big impact on the oxygen demand, and the fish. They were all big fish. So I think that there was 874 trout killed in that thing. They were averaging about 5.5 pounds. There was, I think, 79% of them were females.
Yeah, I heard that. I was going to ask you, is that true? I'd heard that, and that's
97% of them were genetically from the river, the river that they were in. So they went into the river either to stay there and prepare to spawn, which may have been the case, or they went in for cooler water. I don't know, or they may have went in to feed on bloodworm or something. But there was a lot of fish in the mouth of the river, which was very. Does
that river, let's say, like example for a couple of rivers around here, does that river have a history or tradition of lake fish running it in July and waiting there? I know we have that at a couple of rivers here on the Corrib.
That one? So I remember chatting with fisheries staff when they would have been doing some of the they would have been doing pike removal, electrofishing, etc., etc. And they used to try that river in September to see what they get, to see what were pike sitting at the mouth of the river or waiting for trout to go up. And they had to stop the electrofishing because there was so many trout in the river. So they moved it back the following year, and they did it in August, and they had to stop it in August because there was so many fish in the river. And this is about 10, 15 years ago. And they went back to July, and there was trout in the river in July at that time. So it seems to be that a certain proportion of fish will move in, sit and wait, like big spring salmon, and then run at the earliest flood, maybe in October or November. So we don't know is the answer, Tom. And I think that what the research seems to be indicating as well in terms of the work that IFI are doing on climate change, they have tagged fish, and they're able to see that now the sample size is very small, but it does seem to be the case that as water warms up in the lake, the fish will move towards the mouths of the river because the water temperature is cooler.
It's a bit cooler.
Yeah, so it seems that they will move there, and if the temperature drops, they disperse out of there again. And it's amazing the way that the trout will move. They'll move from one end of the lake to the other, and it's just extraordinary some of the results that's coming back. But it was really, really disappointing that we had that fish kill. It's on one of the rivers that we've done an awful lot of work on. We've done that in conjunction with IFI, and it was really disappointing. I was going to my son's wedding on that weekend, and it kind of took the blouse off the weekend for me.
What was the outcome of the investigation or the report? Was there
inconclusive, Dara?
So similar to the Blackwater?
Yeah. So
would you not be worried? Like we've had some of the biggest fish kills this year on some of Ireland's most iconic waters.
Oh, I'm absolutely.
And both reports are inconclusive. Like.
Yeah, but look, I've spoken about that, and again, I know IFI have got an awful hammering over some of this stuff. Like, I look at IFI and I'm saying to myself, as an organisation, I don't think they're funded correctly. I think that they haven't been given the powers that they require. It's divided. So government policy seems to be divide and conquer here. So we give some of it to the county councils, we give another piece to the APA, and we give some to the fisheries. You know, I think if you look at IFI's record in relation to prosecutions, they'd have more prosecutions than all of the councils in Ireland together. They have probably, they might have 100 staff working on in the whole of the country on issues like that. Councils are so well resourced here, and they're not coming up to the plate. We have the EPA, who seem to do nothing other than report. They don't do anything about enforcement. And I think that from the perspective of water quality, I am absolutely seriously concerned about not alone what's happening on Sheelin, but it will happen on other places, because our policies are all directed towards intensification. We have a minister at the minute who's lobbying Europe to get the nitrates directive extended. He's also responsible for water quality. Now, the two don't match. And it's my view that we have a serious issue facing us. I think that I'm really concerned about water quality. I don't see it improving. And I think that when the memory of the Blackwater, like the Sheelin one, was forgotten when the Blackwater happened. And in fairness, the Blackwater it's an ecological disaster of monumental proportions. This is probably the worst thing that has happened in Europe in the last number of years, to have such a fish kill. And we have forgotten about it in less than 2 months. It's just extraordinary. I find it extraordinary that people in Ireland forget about this stuff, and it's part of our heritage and part of it's part of Ireland. If we allow our water quality to go and we have filthy rivers, it's just going to be a total disaster from our perspective. And I cannot understand how government cannot see that this intensification of agriculture, it will soon be the case that a man with 40 acres will be a hobby farmer in rural Ireland.
Yes.
You need to have that rural I live in rural Ireland, and if I haven't got my neighbours who have the few cattle and you need that to keep the community vibrant. We can't continue with this policy of intensification after intensification. So my blood pressure goes up when I start to talk about it. So I'm sorry. I suppose we were supposed to talk about fishing, but I think that's, and I'm concerned that what I'm seeing from government is that the resources are not being given to the likes of Inland Fisheries Ireland, who, despite what we might think, do a really good job. Like, we've got an enormous amount of work done in terms of getting river development done in conjunction with Inland Fisheries Ireland. Lough Pro, this new crowd that's supposed to support county councils, they have got a budget, I'd say 2 or 3 times bigger than Inland Fisheries Ireland. And these guys are doing nothing other than photograph projects around the country. They're not making any difference. And I think they should be brought in under the umbrella of IFI and allow that to be directed towards I suppose, improving the fishery resource that we have in Ireland. It's worth £1 billion. It's shown that it's worth £1 billion. If you never ever put a pound note value on it, in itself, the rivers and lakes of Ireland are worth having, even if they never returned a pound, and we should have clean water in them.
Yeah, I think that's right. Sorry, I think that's a really important point. Even if there was never a pound or a euro made on them, they should be maintained. But we actually do make out of them as well to the exchequer. But I agree with you, even if there wasn't a penny made out of them.
Yeah.
I think the reality on it, Eamon, is as well that it's kind of starting to come home to roost in the sense of government and politicians' approach to the environment.
Yeah.
So whether it's through water quality, whether it's towards the environment, whether it's towards farming, just look at our record in Europe in terms of emissions.
We have never reached a water framework target for any. We've never reached one of our targets. Now, I live in a rural community, and I really have respect for the farming community. I've worked with the dairy industry for years in my life, and I have really good time for farming. And that community are the backbone of rural Ireland. What I'm saying is that I believe that the message needs to go out loud and clear to government, because this is political and policy rather than individuals. It needs to go out loud and clear. You cannot keep doing what you're doing because we're not going to let you do it. And that's up to you to do that.
It's only ever been lip service that they've paid to it, I think, Like, look at our position when it comes to renewable energy. Like, we're near the bottom of the table in European terms. Like, I remember speaking to an Irish guy who's high up in the European Commission before, and he explained to me, if you included Ireland's sea as part of our territory, our borders with our sea, we'd be the biggest territory in Europe. We'd be larger than Germany.
Yeah.
He says we could actually be a blue superpower, is how he called it. I thought it was a great phrase.
Yeah.
But we don't have that mindset, that approach to it,
No, we're very short term, and we think that the water will. We keep thinking that this is going to go on forever. It will not go on forever. And now I'd be concerned about, from Lough Shielin's perspective, I have a concern about increasing water temperatures, because if it keeps happening, it will have an impact on trout fishing in the lake. There's not a doubt about that. But water quality is much more serious in terms of making sure that phosphates and nitrate levels are brought down to manageable levels, and that there's a respect for the water. Like, we all drink it every day. We throw shit into it. Excuse the expression. We then pay to take that out, and we feed ourselves with the water that we pay to take the stuff out of. It's ridiculous in my view in terms of water quality.
Where I worry about it, though, is it's only I can't see it getting any better, especially in the short term, because we need more houses, more development, more infrastructure. We don't have the water infrastructure in place to cope anyway. These bodies, as we've said, aren't funded properly. Legislatively, they're not even set up properly, as we've discussed, Tom, when we covered the Blackwater issue with Conor Arnold when he was before the Oireachtas. And legally, they're not even strong enough to actually deal with this stuff. And like it seems to be like I think the worry is like because as we covered on it, Tom, is that there's nothing to stop what happened on the Blackwater and what happened on Sheelin occurring again and again
No.
and again, and nothing to stop it, and no consequences until the legislation is changed. But for the legislation to be changed could take 5 years minimum.
But there's enough legislation in place um, to do what we need to do in terms of trying to if we implemented what's there, you would make some progress. And I think
No, but there's no
what
great
concern,
hunger. There's no great hunger to implement it.
no, and that's the big concern. So
Yeah.
you have government policies to divide this stuff up between three bodies. There's no way that we can manage water quality by allowing county councils to police the local areas. It's just too difficult to do. And then you have the EPA who police licensing. They don't touch anything else. And you give no resources to the inland fisheries body who have their feet on the ground and know what's going on. You know, even though we might have criticism of them, they're the only ones that have a knowledge of what's going on the ground, and they know how to do stuff. So our policies are designed to make sure that we don't catch a polluter. It pays to pollute in Ireland. There's no doubt about it, and it has always paid. If I'm in business, why would I spend money um, treating effluent if I can dump it into the river? Why would I do it?
And even if you are caught, you might get paid. You fined what,
Yes.
€3,000 or
Yes,
something
it's
like,
peanuts.
you know.
Like,
And the other thing on that as well is just the final point on that is like, and again we've covered it is, and I think you're dead right, Eamon. It's not an angler. It shouldn't be seen as an angler or portrayed as an angler
no.
fish story or issue. It's a water quality issue which affects
Yes.
every single person who uses it. Give me a good example here down in South Tipperary. Sorry, just we've had a boil water notice here for the last 2 months. Two
Yeah.
months because the water treatment plant, there's an issue with it. South
Yeah.
Tipperary for 2 whole months. We've been told
Does that include you? Like, does that
yeah,
include your house?
yeah. South Tipperary, we've been told for last 2 months there's an issue with the water treatment plant, and we have to boil water every night to let it cool down so that we can use it.
I remember a case, and you'll probably remember it yourselves. Mike, you'll probably remember it, and Tom. In on the Corrib and some parts of Galway had to boil water for months upon months because of
That's right, yeah.
cryptosporidium.
Was it the
Yeah.
cryptosporidium?
And people had to go and buy water. And if that had happened in France, there would have been outrage and riots and protests of all sorts. And we accept that stuff. You know, there's no sense of outrage amongst Irish people in relation to water quality.
Oh,
And
it's
that's
short-lived. It's like everything. It's just short-lived, you know, the
yeah.
short-lived. But I think even with the Sheelin one, just to go back to it for a second, that I can't understand is like, which doesn't make sense to me, is inconclusive. I love this. It's inconclusive. Everybody walks away and nobody takes responsibility for anything really at the end of the day. So, like, if you fish in a river and it starts to get warm, well, fish are going to move out of there into cooler water if they have the opportunity to do it. So obviously something happened very fast that they didn't get the opportunity. So like that's simple logic. But like,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
that's
100% agree with
people a
you.
lot more educated than me and are in those positions know that, but none of them want to do with it. And everybody who wants to be inconclusive is lovely because nobody has to actually take the bull by the horns.
Mm.
And I 100% agree. And I think that part and parcel of that is that the design of our I suppose water quality policing is designed in such a way that nobody can have responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, minister designed this.
Yeah, and the Blackwater the exact same. It's the
We give
exact
one
same
bit
if you
to the
took the
county council, we
timeline
give
and
another bit to the EPA, and
yeah,
we give another bit to fisheries, and we'll see what happens.
yeah.
Do you know
So
what? And do you know
Gives
what
everybody an opt-out clause.
and do you know what they'll end up
they
doing,
do.
right? They'll end up doing is they'll have a report into it, right? And that they'll need to set up a new body. They'll need to disband a few of the old ones, right? And they need to set up a new body and rename it, right?
Yeah,
Because I just think of like the HSE example, you
Mm.
know. So when something becomes so tainted with controversy and scandal and whatever else, set up a new one, have a report, set up a new one, rename it, and then let them go on for a few more years. Then that'll take the fall, and then do it again, like
Mm.
without actually addressing the real
Yeah,
problems.
you're
Like,
hearing that already, like that we don't have the powers and we don't have this and this would have to be reviewed and this would take years and this will take. And sure, that suits the agenda. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Sure. Again, nobody is taking responsibility for anything. So everybody's there in nice jobs and nice salaries, but no one's taking responsibility for anything.
but I get the from what you're saying, Eamon, though, is and I don't know how much you can reveal, but in the sense of, I'd say there's a lot of frustration maybe within the IFI in the sense of that they're
Yeah.
not resourced, that their hands are almost tied in terms of what they wish they could do.
Look, I met with a group of IFI staff yesterday who came, and they weren't trying to pull the wool over my eyes. They genuinely can't say what happened. I'm telling you that I have a fair idea what happened. Something came down the river when those fish were in there, and like Mike said, and that triggered an event that caused a biooxygen
Yeah,
drop.
depletion. Yeah.
But do the IFI officials not think that off the record either?
Sure, look, what I'm saying to you, Dara, is that if you want, IFI can. My understanding of their powers is that they need to find a point source, and in this particular instance, they didn't. Now, I think that it would have taken so little of let's say an incident to reduce the oxygen, because you had the high water temperatures.
Yeah.
And because of the level of biooxygen demand, because of the eutrophication of the water, it doesn't take much to tip it over the balance. So it was very, very small. And at the time, I went to Dublin that morning, and I always look in across the bridge in Mount Nugent, and it was barely flowing. And it was when I was coming back down that evening, there had been thunder that day, and I seen floods all up in County Meath and the rivers, and I was delighted because I look forward to floods because they tend to bring down the temperature a little bit. But when I got to Mount Nugent that evening, the river was only up by about an inch or two, so it didn't go
Oh,
up.
it didn't come that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So whatever happened, the little flow of water brought it in, and that's my opinion. I have no basis for it in science or anything else. All I know is that it happened, and it doesn't make logical sense to think that a group of fish stayed around the mouth or the lower end of a river and didn't move out of it if it was too warm. So I don't believe the thing about water.
No, that doesn't make
I
sense.
believe that it was a contributory factor, and but look, I suppose the point is that it really doesn't matter. It's like crying over spilt milk. What you're trying to do here is to see, well, why or how can we prevent this stuff from happening again? And I don't see any way of that being prevented again, either in Lough Sheelin or the Blackwater. And if it happens, and it could happen in the Corrib or Mask or anywhere else as well.
Mm.
Now I know Conor Arnold, Tom. They were trying to organise raising funds, wasn't it, for monitors, water quality monitors,
Yeah.
wasn't it, to put in? Like, is that an option for Sheelin, Eamon?
Yeah. So look, we've been talking to not alone to Inland Fisheries Ireland, but to other people, and I'm not going to go into it, about trying to do something like that. Again, it will, if we may have to do it ourselves. It may be that we will have to take it on ourselves as anglers, but to do it from a national perspective, it's an awful job. Like it's massive. We might be able to do it on some of the rivers in Sheelin, but like.
But surely it should be the EPA, IFI, Law Pro. This surely should be a priority for them, like.
Of course it should, but Law Pro would far rather. Well, I don't want to down Law Pro. I have a particular thing about them. I think that they're set up more as PR exercise than anything else. Now, I apologize to them if I'm wrong about that, but that's my opinion of it. I think that the targeting of funding towards improving water quality should be brought in under IFI. And I have a concern that IFI are being, slowly but surely eviscerated by a lack of funding. And no, they haven't done themselves any favors in the way that it has been managed over the last number of years. But having said that, if you continuously if you don't invest in your car or it's going to fall asunder on you, and you're going to. So eventually, it will not work. And when it doesn't work, the politicians in the country will say, "Well, look, it's not working. They will get rid of it. So we'll put the whole lot, and we'll let Lough Corrib county councils manage it." Like, it's a nightmare situation from an angling perspective. Like, if we do not have a specific body managing inland fisheries, we're in big trouble as anglers, in my view. And from the perspective of water quality, the only ones that have been really active on water quality as a body consistently since the 70s has been IFI. They're the only ones that have been there calling it out.
What about, like, forgive my ignorance on this, is like the Environmental Protection Agency, is it not in the name? You know, like you said, they do a lot of reports, but like, what's the point in doing all these reports if there's no actual actions?
Yeah, so you'd have to question the effectiveness of the EPA, because the EPA were put in place to manage and to help improve water quality, and it's consistently disimproved. So you have to say that the programs that have been put in place by government have failed, and the EPA are part of that. And that's no fault, again, to the staff within the EPA who are doing their level best. They don't have, in my view, sufficient teeth to be able to deal with stuff.
I think what we're seeing here, and it's, look, going over here, it's a system not fit for purpose.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's it, basically. And you're looking, it's not fit for purpose.
I'm sorry to start this conversation, Tom.
Yeah, but like when something happens, the structures aren't there for it to be dealt with properly, and I think that has to be rectified.
But can I also, sorry, just a point that I don't want to labor on this because we will get back to the fishing season, is like, you look at, I think it was the IFI about remember there was a whole thing about the 3,000 man-made obstructions, was it, around the country, the weirs that they wanted to get rid of, right? Now, and there was a big hoo-ha about it and a lot of PR, and you hear about it, we're going to do this and we're going to get funding for this and all that. And I'm kind of going, in the bigger scheme of things, surely water quality and water quality monitoring and water quality improvement should actually take precedence over weirs and obstructions.
So just when you do talk about the weirs, we are looking to get a weir taken out in Castlecar, and the planning permission, I've seen it on the Meath paper this week, and it's one of the things that I've been looking to get done for the last 5 years. My understanding of it, Dara, is that has come about because European funding was available all over Europe to get rid of weirs and to stop the obstruction of fish from moving. So I think that's why that's been.
So it didn't come from within Ireland.
No, it's part of the European program.
There you go.
So that's one of the reasons that I think that it's very important that Europe and the European Union gives a message loud and clear to Ireland that you must improve your water quality, and you cannot continue to come over here asking for derogations when the water quality is going down the tubes. That cannot be allowed to happen. And if the message comes back from Europe, and again, and I'm not being anti-farmer here, but it has to stop. And we've got to get the message across to the dairy industry, to the agricultural industry, the beef industry, all of those industries that are contributing to the I suppose the decrease in water quality, including Uisce Éireann, that you've got to get your house in order. And if you don't get your house in order, we're not going to keep bailing you out and giving you parachutes here.
But again, Uisce Éireann will talk about the amount of money that's needed for water infrastructure improvements, how much development is still needed. They'll argue that they're short billions, that they need more billions in the future as well. So it's like, every angle you look, it's people going, well, we need more, we need more. We're not going to solve it tonight.
No, but then just on the Blackwater one as well. On the Blackwater, everybody came on there, every state body, whatever they be, IFI, EPA, whoever, and everybody said, oh yeah, but that's not kind of really us. That's kind of them. And the next guy, well, no, that's not really us either. Like, that's, so everybody, all these bodies, but none of them are actually functioning correctly and doing, and until that's addressed, I think we're going nowhere either. Do you know what I mean? And it's a toothless tiger, unfortunately.
We'll have to get, the mysteries that we were taught. You mightn't be that old yet, Tom, but when I was a young fellow, we used to be told the mystery of the Holy Trinity. That there was 3 divine persons in one God. We'll have to make 3 divine organizations in one organization and try to get them all to work together.
Bring the Holy Trinity in as one. I have a vague recollection of it, Eamon.
It was bit into us.
It was hammered into me, is right, Mike.
Just on the whole thing about the bodies, was it John Collison, the Stripe co-founder, and he had an article in the Irish Times.
Really good article.
And I can't, I'm trying to pull it up there, I can't find it. But he made a very good point about basically the proliferation of bureaucracy and government bodies, say in the last 20 years or whatever, and how it's just basically gone through the roof.
A lot of that is down to a lack of political vision and a lack of political leadership. We have politicians who follow opinion polls rather than what they want for the country. And you can't manage stuff doing that. You can't manage anything, be it an organization, a business, anything. You can't do it.
Somebody else said that was on also as well, most of them are not, most politicians don't look beyond 4 years, maybe 5. They don't, because, it's not in their remit. All they're just concerned about now, something immediate, something that'll keep them in situ. The long term doesn't really concern them too much, which is unfortunate.
And it's also, it comes back to it's easier to farm responsibility out to a body over there and a body over there, as opposed to actually saying, do you know what?
But the person that does take that, the one that does do the leadership will be the one that will go down in history. If we can try to tempt them with that one and then go on to the fishing. Whoever does take responsibility will go down in history.
Gets that divinity out of the Holy Trinity, is it?
Get a few anglers in the doll is the only way, I think.
That's big, yeah.
Get Conor Arnold up there. Sort of it. Actually, sorry, just on that, before we move on, that article from John Collison in the Times. He says, in the past 25 years, there's been a proliferation of regulators, departments, agencies, and NGOs. Since 2000, we have created 300 new government agencies, quangos, or departments, compared to 74 in the previous 25.
Yeah, that adds up.
Yep. There you go. That's it. Okay, listen. So actually, just on the fishing season, then, Eamon, I suppose it obviously put such a dampener on Sheelin.
Yeah, no, I want to go back to the bright side, because I don't like concentrating on the negatives, because the fishing actually was very, very good from about August on until the close of the season. And there was great wet fly fishing through the lake. You were moving, seeing fish, turning fish, and getting them. I still suffered the same problem as I said about last year. Fish following and not taken, and frustrating me. But I got more this year than I did in other years. So I pulled up a little bit on my numbers. I ended up with about 17 or 18 trout out of Sheelin for the year, which is poor.
Because you had a great year last year, didn't you? You had one of the better years last year.
I had nearly 60 last year, and that's good for Sheelin. But I had good fishing in other areas. I had good fishing in Lough Erin, and I had good fishing in believe it or not, in Lough Neagh, I had a few fish in it. So I've had a very good year in terms of having good fun. I had great fun this year fishing. So
and did you fish Melvin much?
I fished it a couple of times, and I got me a couple of fish in it, but I missed the competitions in it. I was away. Look, it's
come here, can we ask you one thing? Did you try the bung on Sheelin?
I did. I tried the bung everywhere. I swear to God. I didn't get anything on it. But I was trying it at the wrong time of the year. But I'm telling you, it is so fascinating. Watching this thing, and it's like fishing for perch. I know that I'm doing it wrong, and I shouldn't be doing it, but it's
can't help yourself.
Not stopping you.
I remember, I'm going to tell you a story. I saw Dennis Goulden fishing it one evening in Chambers Bay a couple of years ago, and it was extraordinary. The fishing that he did that time was extraordinary. It seemed that he was in a stocky lake. He caught so many fish, and myself and Paul Lunny were fishing the straight line buzzer, and we couldn't get a pull. And I used to turn around to Lunny and say every so often, "Jesus, Lunny, we don't know how to fish at all," because we got one that day each, I think. And when we came in, he was well on the men. So, of course, I took up the courage and rang him that evening. So he told me all what I needed to do. And I went out with full intentions the next day of getting them on the bung. So off I went with this bung on me line, and I went to cast it, and I cast it out. And the bung went one way and the line went the other. And that was the last of the bung fishing I done in Sheelin until I got the little bit of tuition from Mark Cleland this year in Lough Corrib.
Now, what about you, Mike? Were you fishing the bung on Corrib in late season?
No. It does work. It works in the buzzer time, all right. But
Because you do it every, don't you? Who do you do with? Somebody that doesn't
no,
fly
a
fish
friend of
with?
mine,
Yeah.
Mike Hamilton, he
Oh, friend,
done
yeah.
competition with me.
No.
Mike wouldn't do a lot of casting, and he during the buzzer we do set up a bung for him. I set up a bung on one buzzer about 5 foot beneath it. And he gets loads of fish in it. Fishing a single buzzer. He gets plenty of fish in it, you know. What we call him, we call him Mike the Bung, you know. But yeah, no, well, after I suppose from August on, then we had a lot of fish actually. Like everything was just so early this year. Like we had a lot of fish actually moving towards the rivers early, August time, and like it was good quality fish being caught like all around the islands and the shallows out, you know, kind of, and definitely fish moving in towards the rivers then. But then we had a big flood in when we got the big flood there September time. That kind of early September, that kind of finished a lot of it, to be honest. I think a lot of fish just seemed to
Yeah.
know that water was coming, you know what I mean, and moved in early. And I won't say it was, you know, there was still a bit of fishing to be got. I know it fished a bit there late sea, you know, later on there, and there was it fished a bit. There was a few olives, especially the east part of the lake there. Lads had a bit of decent fishing where they had, but you needed a hatch of fly. If you didn't have a hatch of fly there after that big flood in the place to get a few fish moving, it was really, really hard work. A lot of fish ran up the rivers, like they might, which is a good thing. They might, you know, they might have just stayed up in the rivers. You know, a lot of fish ran up Gerard, a lot of fish ran Mam, a lot of fish ran Cornamone and those, and you know, there's a lot of reports of a lot of fish seen going up in those floods. You know,
Remember we saw the video as well.
yeah, a guy done the
An
video on
underwater
the Mam
video
River,
taken one of the
yeah,
rivers.
and there was a
Just
lot of fish
load of
in the
trout.
river, like,
Yeah.
you know, that was mid-September at that stage then, you know,
Mm.
so which is a good thing, you know what I mean? At least you know what I mean, there's a lot of fish going up. I know what Eamon is saying, and I think the thing that I think a lot of the lakes are under pressure, and like a lot has to be done, and we're going to see a lot more disasters, unfortunately. I think the thing to say about Corrib is the size of it. The actual physical size is, you know what I mean, and I
It's
suppose,
huge.
you
And the
know,
run of water that goes
the
through
run
it.
of water that goes through it,
The
definitely.
water flushes out 4 or 5 times a year, they reckon, or even more. There's an aim on the turnover
Yeah,
of water in it.
that
And
does,
this,
like,
yeah.
because when we're talking about 44,000 acres of water, whereas I don't know what Sheelin is. What is it in?
4.5. You'd fit 10 Sheelins. It's like one big bay in Corrib.
Yeah.
You'd fish 10
Yeah,
of
do you
them.
know what I mean? So it's like, and I can see where your point is about big boats and big engines as well. Because in fairness,
Small.
you know,
Yeah.
if we're taking, would say, Gerard and the islands around it and that kind of an area is a similar size to Lough Sheelin, like if you had that volume of traffic and even fishing traffic, you know what I mean? It puts first pressure like on a lake,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean, and for fish, like, you know what I mean, because like we see it ourselves. If you put a lot of boat pressure on fish, they'll switch off. They'll come on for short periods of time, and then
Yep.
you know, and switch off again. You know, that's the way it's going to be. You know.
But you know, sorry, one of the things we haven't mentioned when we were talking about water quality earlier is Lough Neagh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the size of that. That's a national scandal. Like I see they're turning that into a cross-body, all-island approach
Yeah,
now.
well, because some of the tributaries come from some of the tributaries come from the south. They're in Monaghan, and there's some in Cavan as well, I think.
Yeah, if you go from Cavan to Monaghan, you'd go across the River
watershed.
Fin, and that all heads on down and is drained into Lough Neagh. So it's a massive catchment. It's a massive catchment.
Mm.
I think with Neagh, it was just a time bomb waiting to happen.
100%. But Lough Neagh is relatively shallow as well. It's
Yeah,
not
exactly. Yeah.
It's not a deep lake.
I wouldn't know it very well, but I've heard that, and I feel like it's, you know what I mean? I suppose from, you know, it's probably a more stagnated lake maybe as well, you know what I mean, with the actual geographic area around it. I don't really know
Flatter.
that well. Like we'd have a lot of mountains to the top of the lake, and I suppose rural, not overly intensively farmed, a lot of the
Yeah,
catchment, do you know what I mean? So it's a different type of environment as well,
Mm.
But like you said, one to watch as well. Who knows?
Oh,
So
geez. Yeah.
yeah, what'll happen there? Eamon and Mike. So what's the? Will you? We're into November now, so the rod's hanging up. You just gonna leave it now until springtime next year?
Yeah, just sorting out boats now and tidying up and pulling and dragging and the usual. So, but then sure, you won't feel it once January comes around again.
Yeah,
You're starting getting the old edge, and you don't feel it coming around. But
yeah.
look, we had a good year. I mean, Tom knows as well, and we can't complain. We had a good year in Corrib. I mean, you had that warm weather twice, as Eamon said there. You had, so like, nothing you can do about that much. But like when we had it Midland right, like the lake fished really well. Like I have to say, and the quality of fish in Corrib the last couple of years is exceptional. Like it's just. It's unreal the quality of the fish. I suppose maybe we've had very mild winters as well the last couple of years, and
Hmm.
I think fish are feeding probably, you know what I mean, probably more in the winter. You'd wonder, would it be better if you got a bit of high water and cold and fish did stagnate a bit, do you know what I mean, for a while? And, whereas now I think fish are on the go all the time. There's nothing
Hmm.
like the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't had like one day a really, really hard frost where you'd
Yeah.
actually
No,
be,
yeah.
a bit
we
weary
haven't
driving the
actually. No.
car. That's been it, like, do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And, so I think just but like the fish are in fantastic quality, in great, great condition altogether.
And
You
what
know,
about you, Eamon, with Sheelin? What are you? Will you just put the rods away and
I'm probably going to do a little bit of. There's a little lake beside me, the Holy Lake, and the
a
last
little
day I
bit of
was
bone
down on
fishing.
it. I was the Holy Trinity Lake. I go down and I pray before I fish. But
You'll get a name. You'll get a name for yourself.
I go down to that and I'm going to try fishing it with size 18s and 20s because the fish are fairly picky and I want to do that. And if I can get that done, I'll then concentrate on looking at the trout spawning in the rivers. I love going up
Hmm.
to keep an eye on the trout spawning.
What time of the month do they spawn? Are they
They're
November
well
or
up.
December?
I'd say that river that the pollution incident took place, I'd say that the trout are well up that river now because there's been good high
Yeah.
water. So I would say to you, probably in the next week, you'll see trout and reds up there.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that because it
And do
does
you have
give.
do you have later rivers then?
Yeah.
Will there
So if you
be?
go, like there'll be a second run on that river, and because it's a
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
huge catchment. But
Yeah.
there's another, then the river at the Sheelin Shamrock. And that river is kind of spring fed and it comes in at nearly about a constant 15 degrees into the lake. The trout will run that later in the year. That's the one where the weir is on, and we're hoping to get that weir removed.
Mm.
We have a fish pass at it, but it's a great river because you get a lot of fish going up there, and they're bigger fish that go up there. And between the two of those rivers, I think that genetically you have about 86 or 87% of the trout of the lake come from those two rivers. But the two rivers divide up. They're like two lungs, and they divide up into little tributaries, and the trout go up all the little tributaries. So it's
Right.
lovely to see it.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to do.
Brilliant.
So look forward to that now.
Right, well, enjoy in the off season,
Yeah.
lads. I'm, for Sheila and hope for better things for you, Eamon.
Yeah. No, look, it will be. Like I think it was a blip.
Yeah,
Everything went wrong on Sheelin this year because we had our October competition, the first year in 19 years, we had to cancel it because of the wind. And the
Yeah.
following week just flat calm. And
Yeah.
it was like you couldn't catch a fish in it. It was just a
There was
disaster.
a lot of that this year as well. You know what I mean? It went from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At times, But like
Funny
it has
enough,
to
it
have
was.
it at as
Yeah.
well, Sheelan, hasn't it? You see sometimes it actually. I remember way back. Oh, where were we? Was it 2015? 2014, I think it fished really, really well. Like, do you remember to Mayfly and that? And
Yeah.
we were in Rutland for an international in 15, and some of the lads like from Sheelan area were on the team, and they were all going, "Oh, gee, it was May
Yeah.
time," and we were saying, "Oh, I'd love to be in Sheelan now," and "Oh, this is a killer being here," and
Yeah.
and
It was
then
huge.
they were getting the reports back from other lads, and it was absolutely dire. They just didn't fish at all, so
Yeah.
they ended up
That's the
being
time I
delighted
think
they were there.
that we seen the video that your man put up about the trout fishing on Sheelin. I think it was one of these videos. I think it was Greg White put it up. It was a really good one about Adolf Hitler was going to go fishing on Sheelin, and
it was Hitler in the bunker, and it was dubbed over. It's dubbed over, and the subtitles are there's no spent gnat on Sheelin.
No, what's wrong? Like,
he lists the heads. Right. I'll have to go to Lean and fish for rainbows.
Anyway.
Right, well, listen,
it's good to talk.
Exactly, and look, we'll see how 2026 goes and what it brings, and fingers crossed there'll be no more disasters.
We're always optimistic, so
exactly.
So it's good to talk.
You don't know 1 year from the next what it's going to be like anywhere.
Exactly, exactly. Well, listen, lads, thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the off season anyway.
Thank you very much.
Our thanks to Eamonn and to Mike for joining us on the show, and don't forget to rate, review, and follow on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Plus, you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram. And as we're taking a well-earned break over the winter, myself and Tom will talk to you again in the new year with more episodes about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.